Some women wake up in Vegas with regrets. Maya Johnson woke up in Sicily with a husband. Not just any husband. Salvatore Greco, the man whose name made grown men cross themselves, whose family had ruled this island since before America was even a dream, whose eyes were dark enough to drown in and cold enough to kill with. She didn't remember saying, "I do." Didn't remember the ceremony, the witnesses, the moment her American independence became Sicilian fate. But the ring on her finger was real. The marriage certificate, stamped, signed, legal, was real. And the man standing in the doorway, watching her with the patience of someone who owned time itself, was devastatingly, dangerously real. "Buongiorno, Mowgli," he said, the Italian word for wife rolling off his tongue like a promise and a threat. And Maya realized that sometimes the most dangerous place you can wake up isn't where you don't belong. It's where you're terrified you might. Welcome back to Mafia Folklore. Before this story begins, tell me something. Where are you watching from, and what time is it there? It helps us know how far the legend of the Mafia travels tonight. Now, let's begin. The light was wrong. That was Maya's first coherent thought as consciousness dragged her from sleep that felt more like drowning than rest. The light coming through the windows was too golden, too warm, carrying with it scents that didn't belong in her Brooklyn apartment. Lemon blossoms and sea salt and something else. Something that smelled ancient and expensive and completely foreign. She opened her eyes, silk canopy above her, not the IKEA ceiling she was used to. Cream-colored fabric that probably cost more than her rent, draping from carved wooden posts that looked handmade by someone's great-great-grandfather. Where? Maya sat up too fast. The room spun, her head pounding with the kind of hangover that suggested last night had been either the best or worst decision of her life. Possibly both. The bedroom was massive, high ceilings, terracotta tile floors. Furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum. Dark wood, intricate carvings, the kind of craftsmanship that didn't exist anymore, except in places where tradition mattered more than convenience. Floor-to-ceiling windows stood open, white curtains billowing gently in a breeze that carried the sound of waves and distant church bells. This wasn't Brooklyn. This wasn't even America. Maya looked down at herself. She was wearing a dress. White. Simple but elegant. Linen that felt like butter against her skin. Not the jeans and tank top she remembered putting on yesterday. When was yesterday? Fragments crashed through her mind, sharp and disconnected. The flight to Sicily. 30 hours of travel, JFK to Rome, Rome to Palermo, because her best friend Jade was getting married in some picturesque village, and Maya, despite being broke and exhausted from working double shifts, had promised she'd be there. Arriving in Palermo. The heat hitting her like a wall. The noise, the beauty, Jade's bachelorette party. Too much wine, limoncello that tasted like sunshine and made everything fuzzy around the edges. The nightclub, dancing, Jade laughing. And then, men, 3 of them. Foreign accents, French maybe, following too close. Hands that didn't listen to no. One of them grabbing her wrist when she tried to leave, pulling her into a hallway, his breath hot against her neck as he said things in a language she didn't understand, but whose meaning was crystal clear. Running. God, she remembered running. Through streets that all looked the same, her heels in her hand, panic singing through her veins. And then, a different club. Quieter, more exclusive. The kind of place where the bouncer looked at her, really looked at her brown skin and braided hair and obvious terror, and almost didn't let her in. But she'd pushed past, desperate, and the moment she'd entered, Everything had stopped. The music, the conversations, everything. Everyone had turned to look at her. And in the back, at a table surrounded by men in expensive suits, a man had stood. Salvatore. Even through the haze of fear and alcohol, she'd seen him clearly, seen the way the room had bent around him like gravity, seen the sharp lines of his face, the gray threading through his dark hair, the stillness in his posture that suggested he never needed to raise his voice because people listened the first time. He'd looked at her, then at the door where her pursuers had just appeared. One glance. That was all it took. His men had moved like shadows, intercepting the French men, escorting them out with the kind of efficiency that suggested violence was always an option, but rarely necessary. Then Salvatore had gestured to the chair across from him, and Maya, who prided herself on independence, who'd traveled alone through 6 countries, who didn't trust easily, had sat. "You're American," he'd said, English perfect but accented, each word carefully chosen. "And you're in trouble. I can handle it. Clearly." A ghost of a smile. "But you don't have to. Not here." "Why would you help me?" "Because those men work for people I don't like, and because—" He'd studied her face. "Because you walked into my establishment, and that means you're under my protection, whether you knew it or not." They'd talked. She remembered that much. He'd ordered her water, coffee, something to eat, had kept his distance, kept his hands to himself, but had watched her with an intensity that should have been frightening, but somehow wasn't. And then, oh God, Maya's hand flew to her left ring finger. Gold band, simple, beautiful, definitely not costume jewelry. No. She scrambled out of bed, legs unsteady, and found a mirror, full length, framed in the same dark wood as everything else. The woman staring back at her looked like someone playing dress-up. White linen dress that fit perfectly despite her curves. Hair still in yesterday's braids, though slightly messy. Brown skin golden in the Mediterranean light. And that ring. That ring. "No, no, no!" Maya turned, looking for her phone, her purse, any evidence of what the hell had happened. Instead, she found a photograph, sitting on the dresser in a silver frame that looked antique. Her and Salvatore. She was wearing this exact white dress. He was in a black suit. They were standing in front of what looked like a priest, surrounded by people she didn't recognize. And they were both smiling. She was smiling. Like this was real. Like this was wanted. Like she'd chosen this. The door opened. Maya spun, heart pounding, and there he was. Salvatore Greco looked different in daylight. No less intimidating, but more human. He wore dark slacks and a white shirt, sleeves rolled to his elbows, no tie. His hair was slightly damp, like he'd recently showered. He held a coffee cup in one hand and regarded her with the same careful attention he'd given her last night. "Buongiorno," he said quietly. "Did you sleep well?" "What?" Her voice came out strangled. She tried again. "What the hell is this? Where am I? What?" She held up her hand, the ring catching light. "What is this?" "That," he said calmly, "is your wedding ring." The floor tilted. "My what?" "Wedding ring. We married last night, legally, properly witnessed and documented under both Italian and Sicilian law." He took a sip of his coffee, watching her over the rim. "You are my wife, Maya. And I am your husband." That's insane. I would never." "You did. And you were quite clear about it, actually." He set down his cup, pulled a folded paper from his pocket. "The marriage certificate, your signature, my signature, 2 witnesses, My cousin Antonio and your friend Jade. Jade? Maya's voice cracked. Jade was there? She was concerned at first, but you assured her this was what you wanted, that it was the only way. He unfolded the paper, held it out. See for yourself. Maya crossed the room on shaking legs, took the certificate. There, in black and white, impossible and undeniable, Maya Elise Johnson, Salvatore Alessandro Greco. Her signature. She recognized the way she crossed her J, the slight leftward slant she'd never been able to correct. This was real. I don't remember, she whispered. I know. How much did I drink? Enough that I made sure you understood what you were agreeing to. Multiple times, in English, in front of witnesses. His voice was gentle but firm. You were not coerced, Maya. You were desperate, and you asked me for help. Fragments were coming back now, sharp and terrible. The French men. They'd found her again. Had cornered her outside the club where Salvatore's men had escorted them. Had made threats. Had shown her photographs on a phone. Other women, other situations, other consequences. They'd told her she could come quietly, or they could make things difficult. She'd run back into Salvatore's club. Had found him still there. Had thrown herself at his mercy. They won't stop. They're connected. They're... Corsican Syndicate. Yes, I know who they work for. Can you help me? I can protect you. But protection has a price. Anything. I'll pay anything. And he'd looked at her for a long moment, something unreadable in his dark eyes. Marry me. She'd thought he was joking, insane, both. But he'd explained, patient and clear, that marriage to him would make her untouchable. That his name carried weight even the Corsicans wouldn't challenge. That it was the only thing that would absolutely guarantee her safety. And she, drunk, terrified, desperate, had said yes, had meant it, apparently. Oh my God! Maya sank onto the edge of the bed. I married a stranger. Not a complete stranger. We talked for 3 hours before you agreed. Salvatore moved closer but maintained respectful distance. I told you about my family, my responsibilities, what marriage to me would mean. You told me about Brooklyn, your job as a photographer, your complicated relationship with your family. He paused. We were not entirely strangers by the time we signed that certificate. But I don't remember. I know. The alcohol, the trauma. He stopped. I should have waited. Should have made you sleep, made sure you were clear-headed. But the Corsicans were circling, and time was not on our side. Maya looked up at him, this man who was somehow, impossibly, her husband. What happens now? Now? Salvatore's expression was carefully neutral. Now you are under my protection, completely and absolutely. The Corsicans won't touch you. No one will. You are La Signora Greco, and that name is worth more than gold in Sicily. And if I want to leave, get this annulled? Something flickered across his face. Pain, maybe, or resignation. If you want to leave, we will discuss options. But he moved to the window, looking out at the view she hadn't yet seen. But for now, you are safer here than anywhere else in the world. The marriage protects you. Leaving would make you vulnerable again. So I'm trapped. You are protected. He turned back to her. There is a difference. Have you ever made a decision in a moment of panic that changed your entire life? Sometimes survival means trusting strangers. Tell us about it in the comments. Maya stood, moved to the window beside him, and finally saw where she was. The villa sat on a cliff overlooking the Mediterranean. Azure water stretched to the horizon, dotted with white sailboats that looked like toys from this height. Below, she could see terraced gardens, lemon trees, olive groves, flowers in colors that didn't seem real. A stone pathway led down to what looked like a private beach. In the distance, she could see a village, white buildings with terracotta roofs, a church tower, the kind of place that appeared in travel magazines with captions like "Undiscovered Sicily." It was the most beautiful thing she'd ever seen, and she was a prisoner in it. "This is your home?" she asked quietly. "For 6 generations. My family built it in 1847. It has survived wars, earthquakes, and more than a few attempts to take it by force." Pride touched his voice. "It is one of the oldest continuously inhabited villas in Sicily? And now I live here?" "Yes." "As your wife?" "Yes." Maya turned to look at him, really look at him in daylight. He was handsome in the way dangerous things were handsome. Sharp edges, careful control. The sense that relaxing around him would be a mistake. Probably in his late 30s or early 40s, though he carried himself with the authority of someone much older. A scar cut through his left eyebrow, barely visible, but there. His hands, resting on the windowsill, were clean and manicured, but marked with old scars. These were hands that had built things and broken them. "What does most feared mean?" she asked. "They said you were Sicily's most feared mafia boss. Is that true?" Salvatore didn't flinch from the question. "In Sicily, we don't use the word mafia. We say la familia, the family. And yes, I am head of the Greco family. We control the Western territories. We have for over 100 years. His voice was matter of fact. "People fear me because I don't make threats I don't keep. Because I protect what's mine with absolute certainty. Because in this world, mercy is often mistaken for weakness, and I cannot afford to be weak." "So you're a criminal?" "By American standards? Yes. By Sicilian standards?" He shrugged. "I am a businessman. I keep order. I make sure families are fed, children are safe, traditions are honored. The methods are sometimes questionable, but the results speak for themselves. And now I'm married to this. Now you are protected by this." He turned to face her fully. "Maya, I understand this is not what you imagined for your life. I understand you're frightened, confused, angry, but I swear to you..." His voice dropped, became something almost vulnerable. "I swear on my family's name that you are safe here. I will not force you to do anything, will not touch you without permission. Will give you space, time, whatever you need. This marriage may have started in chaos, but I will honor it, completely." "For how long?" "Until we can find another solution, or..." He stopped. "Or what?" "Or until you decide you want to stay." The presumption should have made her angry. Instead, it made her heart race for entirely different reasons. "I need to see Jade," Maya said. "I need to talk to someone who isn't you. Someone who can tell me I haven't lost my mind." "Of course, I'll have her brought here this afternoon." "Brought here?" "She's been staying at a hotel in Taormina, about an hour away. I'll send a car." He moved toward the door, paused. "There are clothes in the armoire. They should fit. I had my cousin's wife estimate your size. Breakfast is being prepared. You'll eat with my grandmother." "Your grandmother?" "Nonna Agata. She speaks very little English, but she understands everything." A small smile. "And she's been waiting 73 years for me to marry. She's quite pleased. Fair warning, she will likely try to fatten you up." Then he was gone, leaving Maya alone with the Mediterranean sun and the impossible reality of her new life. She looked down at the ring on her finger, looked out at the view that belonged in dreams, and wondered if waking up married to Sicily's most feared man was the worst thing that had ever happened to her, or somehow, impossibly, the beginning of something else entirely. Breakfast was served on a terrace that overlooked the lemon groves. Maya had found clothes in the armoire exactly as Salvatore promised: linen pants in cream, a loose silk blouse in deep blue, sandals that fit perfectly, everything expensive, everything beautiful, everything feeling like a costume she was wearing in someone else's play. She'd braided her hair tighter, trying to create some sense of control, and made her way downstairs, following the sounds of clinking dishes and rapid Italian. The villa was even more impressive in exploration. High ceilings with exposed wooden beams, tile work that looked hand-painted, religious icons in gold frames, photographs covering one entire wall, generations of Grecos staring out with the same dark eyes, the same proud posture. Family. La Familia. The weight of it pressed against her as she walked. A young woman, maybe 20, pretty, nervous, had appeared in the hallway and gestured for Maya to follow. She'd led her through the house and out to the terrace where a table was set with more food than 10 people could eat. Fresh bread, cheeses, olives, sliced tomatoes that smelled like summer, prosciutto so thin it was translucent, pastries dusted with powdered sugar, coffee in a silver pot, fresh squeezed orange juice, and sitting at the head of the table, small and ancient and absolutely formidable, Nonna Agata. She was tiny, probably hadn't been over 5 feet tall even in her youth, now bent with age, but still radiating the kind of authority that had nothing to do with size. Her hair was pure white, pulled back in a tight bun. She wore black, widow's black, Maya realized, the traditional Sicilian mourning that some women wore for decades after their husbands died. Her eyes, when they landed on Maya, were sharp as broken glass. She said something in rapid Italian, Sicilian dialect actually, which Maya's limited Italian couldn't begin to parse. "I'm sorry," Maya said, standing awkwardly in the doorway. Non parlo italiano." Nonna Agata's eyebrows rose. She looked Maya up and down, a frank assessment that took in her skin color, her clothing, her obvious foreignness. Then she smiled. Not a warm smile, but not unkind either. She gestured to the chair beside her, said something that sounded like a command. Maya sat. The old woman immediately began loading a plate. Bread, cheese, tomatoes, more food than Maya could possibly eat. She pushed it toward Maya, said something else in Sicilian, then mimed eating. "Grazie," Maya managed, one of the few Italian words she knew. Nonna Agata nodded approvingly. For several minutes, they sat in silence. Maya picked at the food, which was, admittedly, incredible. The tomatoes tasted like the sun. The cheese was rich and tangy. The bread was still warm. Nonna Agata watched her eat with the satisfaction of someone who communicated love through feeding people. "This is really good," Maya said, knowing the woman probably didn't understand but needing to fill the silence. "Buono," Nonna Agata repeated, nodding. "Buono." Then she reached across the table, took Maya's left hand, and examined the wedding ring. Her gnarled fingers traced the gold band, and she said something that sounded approving. She looked up at Maya, and this time her smile was genuine. She tapped the ring, then tapped her own chest over her heart. Family. The message was clear even without words. Maya felt tears burn behind her eyes unexpectedly. She didn't know why. Maybe the kindness, maybe the strangeness, maybe the overwhelming reality that she'd woken up in a life that made no sense. Nonna Agata must have seen something in her face because her expression softened. She released Maya's hand, poured more coffee, and said something gentle in Sicilian. Then she stood, slowly, and gestured for Maya to follow. They walked through the garden. Nonna Agata moved with the careful slowness of someone whose bones remembered too many years, but she refused Maya's offered arm with a shake of her head. Pride, Maya understood. Independence maintained even when the body betrayed. The garden was stunning. Lemon trees heavy with fruit. Olive trees that were probably older than America. Flowers in impossible colors. Bougainvillea spilling over stone walls. Roses the color of blood. Jasmine filling the air with sweetness. At the far end, past the formal gardens, Nonna Agata led Maya to a small chapel. It was old, really old. Stone walls weathered by centuries. A wooden door carved with saints. Inside, it was cool and dim, lit only by candles that flickered before a statue of the Virgin Mary. Nonna Agata crossed herself, knelt with difficulty before the altar. Maya stood awkwardly, not sure what to do. She wasn't Catholic, wasn't particularly religious at all. But something about this space demanded respect. The old woman prayed, her lips moving silently, her weathered hands working rosary beads worn smooth by decades of use. When she finished, she struggled to stand. This time, she accepted Maya's arm. At the door, before they stepped back into sunlight, Nonna Agata turned to Maya. She touched Maya's cheek, gentle, grandmotherly, and said something in Sicilian. Then, in heavily accented but clear English, "La familia is everything. You understand? Everything." Maya stared. "You speak English?" A ghost of a smile. "Little bit, when I want." She patted Maya's cheek. "Salvatore is good boy. Good man. You see? You stay. You see." Then she shuffled back toward the villa, leaving Maya standing in the chapel doorway, wondering how much of the morning had been a test, and whether she'd passed. Jade arrived mid-afternoon. Maya heard the car first, expensive engine, gravel crunching under tires, and rushed to the front entrance. Her best friend emerged from a black Mercedes looking like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. Jade Chen was petite, perfectly put together, her dark hair in a sleek bob. Wearing a sundress that probably cost more than Maya's entire wardrobe. She also looked guilty as hell. "Maya," she started. Maya didn't let her finish. She grabbed Jade and pulled her into a hug so tight it probably hurt. "Tell me I didn't actually marry a mafia boss," Maya whispered into Jade's shoulder. Jade pulled back, held Maya at arm's length. "I can't tell you that, because you did. But Maya, listen. How could you let me do that?" "Let you?" "Girl, I tried to stop you. I said you were drunk, that you needed to sleep it off, that we'd figure something else out. But you—" Jade shook her head. "You were terrified, and he—" She glanced back at the villa. "He was very convincing, and very clear that this was the only way to keep you safe. So you witnessed me marry a stranger? I witnessed you make a choice, a desperate choice, but still a choice." Jade's voice softened. "Those Corsican guys, Maya, they weren't playing. I did some research after. They're human traffickers. She stopped, her face going pale. "If Salvatore hadn't helped you, if he hadn't offered this protection, you might not be here right now." The words hit like ice water. Maya had known the men were dangerous, but somehow, in the chaos and confusion of waking up married, she hadn't let herself think about what might have happened if she'd refused Salvatore's offer. "I'm sorry," Jade said, tears in her eyes now. "I'm so sorry. I should have kept better track of you at the club. Should have made sure you didn't wander off. This is my fault." "No." Maya squeezed her friend's hands. "No, This is not your fault. I'm an adult. I made my own choices, even if I can't remember making them. So what now? Are you okay here? Is he? Jade lowered her voice. Is he treating you well? He hasn't touched me, hasn't even tried. He's been… Maya searched for words. Respectful, distant. He gave me space, brought you here when I asked. His grandmother fed me breakfast and took me to pray. His grandmother? Jade's eyebrows rose. Nonna Agata? You know her? I met her briefly at the… Jade stopped. At the wedding. Maya, she's like Sicilian royalty. The whole Greco family is. And she apparently loved you on sight, which is… That's not nothing. She's notorious for hating every woman Salvatore has ever brought home. He's brought women home before? I mean, I assume. He's not exactly a monk, but… Jade studied Maya's face. Why do you care? I don't. I'm just… Maya turned away. Frustrated. I'm just trying to understand what I've gotten myself into. They walked through the gardens, Jade explaining what she knew. The Greco family was old money, old power. They controlled legitimate businesses, vineyards, olive oil production, construction, alongside less legitimate operations. Salvatore had taken over as capo when his father died 8 years ago. He was respected, feared, and notoriously private. No one knows much about his personal life? Jade said. He doesn't talk to press, doesn't flaunt his wealth, just… She gestured at the villa. Just lives like this. Old world, traditional, very Sicilian. And now I'm part of this world. Are you? Jade stopped walking. Maya, be honest with me. Are you planning to stay? I don't know. He said the marriage protects me. That leaving would make me vulnerable again. She touched the ring on her finger. But I can't just… I have a life in Brooklyn, a job, an apartment. Do you love your life in Brooklyn? The question hit harder than it should have. Maya thought about her tiny studio apartment, her freelance photography work that barely paid bills, her complicated relationship with her family, who still didn't understand why she'd chosen art over something practical, the loneliness that had driven her to travel, to say yes to destination weddings, to keep moving because standing still meant feeling how empty things were. No, she admitted quietly. But that doesn't mean I want this. Doesn't it? Jade's voice was gentle. Maya, I've known you for 10 years. I've watched you run from everything that felt like it might tie you down. Jobs, relationships, home. You're always looking for the next adventure, the next escape. Maybe… She stopped. Maybe this is the universe giving you what you were looking for. A forced marriage to a criminal? A chance to belong somewhere, to someone, to build something that matters. Before Maya could respond, a man appeared on the terrace above them. Not Salvatore. Someone younger, maybe late 20s, handsome in a rakish way, with the same dark eyes but a completely different energy. Where Salvatore was controlled and careful, this man radiated barely contained chaos. Ciao, he called down. You must be the famous Maya. I'm Antonio, Salvatore's cousin, also one of your wedding witnesses, though you probably don't remember me. He bounded down the stone steps with the energy of a puppy, grinned widely, and took Maya's hand. Then, instead of shaking it, he kissed it. Benvenuta alla famiglia. Welcome to the family. His English was excellent, touched with British boarding school. We're very excited to have you. Well? He glanced back toward the villa. Most of us are. Uncle Giorgio is still sulking that Salvatore didn't marry his daughter, but he'll get over it. Probably. Antonio. A warning voice from above. Salvatore stood on the terrace, his expression dark. Antonio just grinned wider. What? I'm being welcoming, making conversation. Isn't that what you wanted? For her to feel comfortable? I wanted you to be appropriate. I'm always appropriate. Antonio winked at Maya. Ignore him. He's grumpy because he hasn't slept in 3 days. Always working, this one. Someone needs to teach him how to relax. Someone needs to teach you discretion, Salvatore said. But there was fondness underneath the exasperation. He descended the steps, and Maya was struck again by the way he moved, controlled, economical, every motion deliberate. He wore different clothes than this morning, dark jeans, black shirt, casual but somehow still formal. When he reached them, his attention focused entirely on Maya. How are you? He asked quietly. Is Jade's visit helping? Yes, thank you for sending for her. Of course. He glanced at his cousin. Antonio, don't you have work to do? I do, but harassing you is more fun. Antonio grinned at Maya. If you need anything, tours of the village, someone to practice Italian with, someone to tell you all of Salvatore's embarrassing childhood stories, I'm your man. Antonio. Going? Going! He kissed Maya's hand again, nodded to Jade, and sauntered off, whistling. Silence settled, made awkward by Salvatore's presence. He seems nice, Maya offered. He's a menace, but loyal. Salvatore's gaze shifted to Jade. Miss Chen, thank you for coming. I'll have my driver return you whenever you're ready. Actually, Jade looked between them. I should probably head back soon. The wedding is tomorrow, and I have final preparations. Tomorrow? Maya's stomach dropped. Jade, I can't come to your wedding. Not now. Not with... I know. I understand. Jade hugged her tightly. But you'll call me? Let me know you're okay? I will, I promise. After Jade left, Maya and Salvatore stood in the garden, the afternoon sun casting long shadows. You don't have to stay away from your friend's wedding, he said quietly. If you want to attend, I'll provide security. Make sure you're safe. And have everyone staring at me? The girl who disappeared and came back married to... She stopped. To the monster. He finished. I didn't say that. You didn't have to. His expression was unreadable. I know what people say about me, what they think, and I know having you associated with me makes your life more complicated. Then why did you offer marriage? Why not just, I don't know, scare the Corsicans away? Use your power differently? Because scaring them wouldn't have been enough. They would have waited, planned. Come back when I wasn't there to protect you. He turned to face her fully. Marriage was the only thing permanent enough, the only thing that would mark you as untouchable in a way everyone would understand. So you sacrificed your freedom for mine. Something flickered across his face. I've been alone for a long time, Maya. Freedom and loneliness start to look very similar after a while. This, he gestured between them. This is not a sacrifice. It's a choice I made willingly. But why? Why? He was quiet for a long moment. Because when you walked into my club, terrified and brave, refusing to be a victim, I saw something I recognized. Someone who doesn't belong, but refuses to apologize for it. Someone fighting against a world that wants to break her. His voice dropped. And I thought, if I could help, if I could protect that, then maybe some of the things I've done would mean something. Maya's heart was pounding. You don't know me. Not yet, but I'd like to. He stepped closer, not touching, but close enough that she could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. I know this isn't what you wanted. Know you feel trapped. But Maya, if you give this a chance, give me a chance. I think you might find that Sicily has room for you, that this family has room for you. And if I can't, if I decide I need to leave? Pain flashed across his face, quickly controlled. Then I'll help you do that too, even if it costs me. Have you ever had someone see you, really see you, when you felt most invisible? Sometimes strangers understand us better than anyone. Tell us your story in the comments. Before Maya could respond, shouting erupted from the front of the villa. Salvatore's entire body went rigid. His hand moved to his waistband, where Maya now realized he carried a gun. "Stay here," he commanded, already moving, but Maya followed anyway. In the front courtyard, 2 cars had arrived. Men in expensive suits were climbing out, their expressions hostile. At the center stood an older man, 60 maybe, with silver hair and cold eyes. He looked at the villa like it personally offended him. When he saw Salvatore, his smile was all teeth. "Salvatore! How rude of you not to invite me to the wedding." His Italian was clear enough that even Maya understood the mockery. "I hear you've taken a wife, an American. How progressive." Salvatore's voice, when he spoke, was ice. "Don Giorgio, you're not welcome here." "Not welcome, but we're family. Or we would have been if you hadn't insulted my daughter by marrying this." His gaze landed on Maya, and the contempt was naked. "This outsider." Maya felt it like a slap. The way he looked at her, not just foreign, but wrong. Her skin, her presence, her very existence an affront to his traditional Sicilian sensibilities. Salvatore moved to stand between them. "Careful," he said quietly. "That outsider is my wife. Insult her again, and family ties won't protect you." Don Giorgio laughed. "You're willing to start a war over her? Over some American girl you've known for days?" "Yes." The single word hung in the air like a blade. Don Giorgio's smile faded. He looked at Salvatore, then at Maya, then back. "You've made a mistake," he said softly. "This marriage, it weakens you, makes you vulnerable. And in our world, vulnerability is death. Then I'll die protecting what's mine." Salvatore's voice was steel. "But I won't apologize for choosing her." The older man studied them both for a long moment. Then he nodded slowly. "So be it. But remember, Nipote, I tried to warn you." He got back in his car, his men following, and drove away. The courtyard was silent except for Maya's racing heart. Salvatore stood perfectly still, his control absolute, but she could see the tension in his shoulders. "He called you nephew," Maya said quietly. "My uncle. By marriage, my father's brother-in-law." Salvatore didn't turn around. "His daughter, Francesca, she and I were supposed to marry, an alliance between families. I refused years ago, but he never accepted it. And now I've made you an enemy. Now I've made a choice." He finally turned to face her. "And I don't regret it." Maya looked at this man, this stranger who was somehow her husband, who'd just declared war on his own family for her, and realized that maybe, just maybe, she was starting to understand why she'd said yes. The days fell into a rhythm Maya hadn't expected. She woke to Mediterranean sun and the sound of church bells. Breakfast with Nonna Agata, who was teaching her Sicilian through food. Pain for bread, formaggio for cheese, pomodoro for tomato. The old woman had surprising patience for Maya's butchered pronunciation, correcting gently, praising small victories with a pat on the hand. Salvatore kept his distance, but he was always there. Present, but not intrusive. He'd appear at breakfast, ask about her needs, ensure she had everything, then disappear into his office for hours, running an empire she was only beginning to understand. But the evenings were different. They'd fallen into a habit of meeting on the terrace after dinner, watching the sun set over the Mediterranean, talking about small things at first. Her photography, his love of architecture, the way Sicily felt both ancient and alive. "You really should see Palermo properly," Salvatore said one evening, 5 days after she'd arrived. "Not just the tourist areas, the real city. The real city where everyone knows who you are, and I'd stick out like a beautiful woman in a city full of beautiful things." He smiled slightly. "Maya, people will stare. Some because they're not used to seeing Black Americans in Sicily. Some because you're with me. Some because you're stunning and they can't help themselves." Heat crept up her neck. "You can't just say things like that." "Why not? It's true. Because we're—" She gestured between them. "This isn't real. This is an arrangement." "An arrangement where I'm not allowed to notice that my wife is beautiful?" His eyes held hers. "That seems like a strange rule." "My wife." The words did something to her chest every time he said them. "Take me to Palermo," she said, changing the subject. "Show me the real city, the one you see." His smile widened. "Tomorrow, I'll clear my schedule." Palermo was chaos and beauty tangled together. They drove in, Salvatore at the wheel of a more modest car, not the Mercedes, with Antonio and 2 other men following in a second vehicle. Security, Maya had learned. Always security. The city assaulted her senses immediately. Narrow streets packed with Vespas and pedestrians and vendors shouting in Sicilian. Buildings in shades of ochre and rust and cream, some crumbling, some restored to glory. Laundry strung between balconies like flags. The smell of espresso and bread and the sea. "It's overwhelming," Maya said, trying to take it all in. "It's alive." Salvatore navigated the narrow streets with practiced ease. Every building has a story. Every street corner has history. Arabs, Normans, Spanish, they all left their mark. Sicily belongs to no one and everyone. He parked near the Quattro Canti, the Baroque intersection at the heart of the old city, and led her on foot through streets that felt like stepping back in time. At the Mercato di Ballarò, the morning market was in full swing. Vendors called out their wares in sing-song Sicilian. Stalls overflowed with blood oranges, artichokes, swordfish on ice, olives in every shade of green and black. The colors were almost violent in their intensity. People noticed Salvatore immediately. Maya saw it in the way conversations paused, the way vendors straightened, the respectful nods he received as they passed. Don Salvatore. They treated him like royalty, and he treated them with a courtesy that surprised her, asking about children by name, remembering birthdays, paying generously for items he selected. An old woman selling vegetables grabbed Salvatore's hand, spoke rapidly in Sicilian, gestured to Maya. Salvatore responded gently, and the woman beamed. She pressed a bundle of fresh basil into Maya's hands, refused payment, said something that made Salvatore's ears turn slightly red. "What did she say?" Maya asked as they walked away. "She said you're too skinny, and I need to feed you better, and that—" He stopped. "That what?" "That you're pretty enough to make an old woman remember what it's like to be young and in love." His voice was careful. "She's a romantic." Maya tucked the basil into her bag, trying to ignore the way her heart had stuttered. They ate arancini from a street vendor, rice balls stuffed with ragu and peas, fried golden and perfect. Maya bit into hers and nearly moaned. This is incredible. Wait until you try my grandmother's. Salvatore wiped sauce from the corner of her mouth with his thumb, the gesture unconsciously intimate. She's been making them for 70 years. These are good. Hers are transcendent. They wandered through the Vucciria market, through streets so narrow the sun barely reached the pavement. Salvatore showed her a Norman palace turned into apartments, a Baroque church where his parents were married, a fountain that was supposedly built by the same architect who designed parts of Versailles. You love this city, Maya observed. I do, even the broken parts, especially the broken parts. He stopped in front of a building that was half ruins, half renovation. My father used to say that Palermo teaches you that beauty and decay can exist in the same breath, that nothing is permanent except the willingness to endure. Is that why you stayed? Why you took over the family business? Part of it. He was quiet for a moment. I could have left, gone to university in Milan or Rome, built a different life, but he gestured at the city around them. This is my blood. These people, these streets. Someone needs to protect them. Make sure the strong don't prey on the weak. My father understood that. Now it's my responsibility. Even if it means becoming what people fear? Especially then. Fear protects. Love protects. Sometimes you need both. They were standing very close now, the narrow street forcing proximity. Maya could see the flecks of gold in his eyes, the faint scar through his eyebrow, the way his jaw tightened when he was holding something back. What are you afraid of, Salvatore? She asked quietly. He looked at her for a long moment. Failing the people who depend on me, becoming the kind of man my power could turn me into. And he stopped. And you leaving before I've had a chance to show you all the reasons you should stay? The honesty of it stole her breath. Before she could respond, Antonio appeared from around the corner, his expression tense. Capo, we have a problem. Salvatore's entire demeanor shifted, from vulnerable to controlled in a heartbeat. What kind of problem? The kind we need to handle. Now. They drove to the industrial district on the outskirts of Palermo. Maya sat in the back of the car, watching Salvatore transform. He made phone calls in rapid Italian, his voice cold and commanding. Whatever softness she'd seen in the market was gone, replaced by the man everyone feared. They stopped at a warehouse that looked abandoned, but clearly wasn't. Men in suits stood guard outside, nodding respectfully as Salvatore approached. Stay in the car, he told Maya. What's happening? Business, nothing you need to see. I'm not a child, Salvatore. If this is part of your world, part of my world now, I should understand it. He studied her face, then made a decision. Antonio, stay with her. Keep her close. If anything goes wrong. I get her out, I know. Antonio offered Maya his arm. Come on, Signora. Let's see how your husband handles disrespect. Inside, the warehouse was cavernous and dim. In the center, 3 men were on their knees, hands bound. Salvatore's men surrounded them, weapons visible but not drawn. A 4th man stood off to the side, older, nervous, sweating despite the cool air. Salvatore walked to the center of the room, his steps echoing on concrete. Lorenzo! His voice carried. I'm disappointed. The nervous man flinched. Don Salvatore, please, I can explain. Can you? Salvatore picked up a folder from a nearby table, flipped through it. These are your shipping manifests, the ones showing you've been skimming product from my warehouses, selling it to competitors. For how long? 6 months? My daughter needed medical bills. I had no choice. We all have choices. Salvatore's voice was cold. You could have come to me, told me about your daughter, asked for help. I would have given it, gladly. Instead, you stole. You betrayed the family. And worse, he looked at the three kneeling men. You involved the Corsicans. Maya's breath caught. The Corsicans, the same syndicate that had hunted her. I didn't know. Lorenzo was crying now. I didn't know they were Corsican. I just needed money. And now you've brought them into my territory. Made them think I'm weak. Made them think they can operate in Palermo without consequence. Salvatore moved closer to the three bound men. Which of you wants to explain to me why you thought that was acceptable? None of them spoke. Salvatore's expression didn't change, but something in the air shifted. Maya felt it, the temperature drop, the way even Antonio tensed beside her. I'm going to ask once more, Salvatore said quietly. And then I'm going to stop asking politely. The man in the center, the biggest one, spat on the ground near Salvatore's feet. We don't answer to Sicilians, he said in French-accented Italian. Your threats mean nothing. Your organization, Salvatore interrupted, will be collecting your bodies from the harbor by morning. Unless, he paused, unless you provide me with something valuable. Names, operations, everything you know about Corsican activity in Sicily. We don't talk. Everyone talks eventually. The question is whether you talk now, while I'm still willing to be reasonable, or later, after you've learned exactly why people fear me. The warehouse went silent. Maya watched, horrified and fascinated, as Salvatore negotiated with violence implied, but not yet enacted. He was terrifying in his calm, in the certainty that these men would either cooperate or suffer. Finally, the youngest of the three, barely 20, broke. I'll talk. I'll tell you everything. Just, please. Wise choice. Salvatore gestured to his men. Take him to the office. Separate room, record everything. He looked at the other two. You have 5 minutes to reconsider. After that, your chance is gone. He walked back to where Maya stood with Antonio, his expression unreadable. You shouldn't have seen that, he said quietly. But I did. And I understand now. Why people fear you, why that's necessary. She met his eyes. You didn't hurt them. You could have. But you gave them a choice. I'm not a monster, Maya, despite what people think. I know. I'm starting to see that. Something shifted in his expression. Relief, maybe, or hope. Come, let's go home. Home. The word settled in her chest, warm and unexpected. That night, Nonna Agata insisted Maya help prepare dinner. The kitchen was huge, professional-grade stove, marble counters, windows that opened onto the herb garden. It smelled like garlic and tomato and fresh bread. The old woman moved through the space with the confidence of someone who'd commanded this domain for decades. She set Maya to chopping vegetables, correcting her technique with gentle taps, praising her improvement with nods. Other women appeared. Antonio's mother, 2 cousins, a neighbor. They spoke in rapid Sicilian, laughing, gossiping, including Maya, even though she understood maybe 1 word in 10. One of the cousins, Lucia, young and friendly, spoke some English. You're doing very well, she said, watching Maya shape meatballs under Nonna's instruction. Most Americans can't handle Sicilian kitchens. Too hot, too loud, too many opinions. I grew up in a loud family, Maya said. Different loud, but still loud. Tell me about your family. Are they happy about the marriage? Maya's hands stilled. They don't know yet? You haven't told them? Lucia's eyes went wide. It's complicated. Family is always complicated, but they're still family. She nudged Maya gently. You should call them. Tell them you found a good man, that you're safe. Parents worry, you know? Even when we're grown. Maya thought about her mother in Atlanta, her father, her 2 older brothers. The last conversation had been tense. Her mother asking when she'd settle down. Her father wondering when she'd do something real with her photography degree. They loved her, she knew that, but they didn't understand her. Would they understand this? I married a Sicilian mafia boss in a panic, and now I'm not sure if I want to leave. That would go over well. Maybe soon, Maya said, when I figure out how to explain it. Nonna Agata said something sharp in Sicilian. Lucia translated. She says there's nothing to explain. You're married, your family, that's all that matters. The old woman nodded firmly, then pressed a wooden spoon into Maya's hand, gestured at the pot of sauce simmering on the stove. Assaggia, she commanded. Taste. Maya lifted the spoon, tasted the sauce. Rich, complex, perfect. It's amazing, she said. Nonna Agata smiled, patted her cheek, and said something that made all the women laugh. What did she say? Maya asked. Lucia grinned. She said you have good taste. In sauce and in husbands. Dinner was chaos in the best way. The massive dining table was crowded with Grecos. Antonio and his mother, Lucia and her husband, 3 children Maya hadn't met before, 2 elderly uncles, everyone talking over each other, passing dishes, arguing about everything from politics to whether the pasta was cooked perfectly. Salvatore sat at the head of the table, and Maya beside him, in the position of honor that was apparently reserved for La Signora. She felt eyes on her throughout the meal, assessing, curious, some friendly, some reserved. But Nonna Agata made it clear, with looks and gestures and the way she kept refilling Maya's plate, that Maya was under her protection. And in this family, what Nonna wanted, Nonna got. You must tell us about America, Antonio's mother said in careful English. We see movies, but movies lie. What is it really like? Loud, fast, everyone in a hurry. Maya smiled. Kind of like this table, actually, but with worse food. That got laughs. They asked her about Brooklyn, about her photography, about how she'd met Salvatore. She told a carefully edited version, meeting at his club, the danger she'd been in, his protection. The truth, but not the whole truth. Salvatore's hand found hers under the table. A brief squeeze. Support. Thank you. After dinner, as the women cleared dishes and the men retreated to the terrace with grappa, Lucia pulled Maya aside. Can I give you advice? She asked quietly. Sure. Salvatore? He seems hard, cold, but it's armor, you know? Protection. Underneath. She glanced toward the terrace where Maya could see Salvatore talking with Antonio. Underneath, he's the kindest man I know. When my husband lost his job, Salvatore found him work, paid for my son's medical bills when we couldn't. He takes care of everyone, but no one takes care of him. Why are you telling me this? Because maybe you could. Take care of him, I mean. Lucia smiled. He looks at you like you're something precious, something he's afraid to hold too tight in case it breaks. I've never seen him look at anyone like that. Maya's heart did something complicated in her chest. I don't know if I'm staying, she admitted. Then figure it out, soon. Because my cousin, he's already in love with you, and watching you leave will destroy him. Later, after everyone had gone and the villa was quiet, Maya found Salvatore in his office. He sat at his desk, reviewing papers, a glass of whiskey beside him. The room smelled like leather and old books and him, sandalwood and something darker. "Knock, knock," she said from the doorway. He looked up, and his expression softened immediately. "You should be sleeping. It's late." "So should you." "I have work." "You always have work." She stepped into the room, moving to look at the photographs on his wall. Family photos. Old ones, sepia-toned. "Is this your father?" "Yes." He joined her, pointed to a stern-looking man in a dark suit. "Antonio Greco. He died 8 years ago. Heart attack." "You look like him." "I try to be like him in the ways that matter. Fair, firm, devoted to family." He paused. "I hope I've succeeded." "Lucia thinks you have. She told me you're the kindest man she knows." "Lucia is biased." "Maybe, but Nonna Agata thinks so too, and your people in the market." "And—" She turned to face him. "And me. I'm starting to think so too." His eyes searched hers. "Maya, I saw you today, in the warehouse. You could have hurt those men. Probably should have, by your world's rules. But you gave them a choice. You gave that young one a chance to save himself. Violence should always be the last resort, not the first. That's not what people expect from someone in your position? Then maybe people's expectations need to change." He moved closer. "Or maybe I need to stop caring what people expect." They were standing very close now. Close enough that Maya could feel the heat coming off him. See the exhaustion in his eyes. The loneliness. Have you ever discovered that home isn't a place but a person? Sometimes the most unexpected places teach us where we truly belong. Tell us in the comments. "Salvatore?" she said quietly. "Your cousin, she said something, that you're in love with me?" He went very still. "And what do you think about that?" "I think—" She stepped closer. "I think that shouldn't be possible. We barely know each other. This marriage was supposed to be temporary, strategic, but I can't stop thinking about you, about this place, about what it would mean to stay." She touched his chest, felt his heart pounding beneath her palm. "I came to Sicily running from my life, and somehow I found something I wasn't looking for." "What's that?" "A reason to stop running." His hand covered hers, holding it against his heart. "You don't have to decide tonight. Don't have to decide at all until you're ready." "What if I'm ready now?" "Maya, kiss me," she whispered. "Please. I need to know if this is real." For a moment, he didn't move. Then his hand cupped her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone, and he leaned down slowly, giving her time to change her mind. She didn't. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, like he was afraid she'd break. But Maya pressed closer, her hands sliding into his hair, and the kiss deepened, became something more urgent, more real. When they finally pulled apart, both breathing hard, Salvatore rested his forehead against hers. "Dio mio," he whispered, "you're going to be the death of me." "Or the life of you," she countered. He smiled, that rare, genuine smile that transformed his entire face. "Yes, or that." They stood there, wrapped in each other, while outside the Mediterranean night sang with cicadas and distant waves. And Maya realized something terrifying and wonderful. She was falling in love with her accidental husband, and she didn't want to stop. 3 weeks after the kiss, Maya woke to shouting. She'd been sleeping better lately, sharing the master bedroom with Salvatore, though they'd taken things slow. Falling asleep in his arms had become her favorite part of the day. The way he held her carefully, like she was something precious. The way his breathing would even out, the control finally released in sleep. But now, his side of the bed was empty, the sheets cold. And somewhere in the villa, men were arguing in rapid, angry Italian. Maya pulled on a robe, silk, expensive, another gift from Nonna Agata, who decided Maya needed a proper wardrobe, and followed the sound. The shouting came from Salvatore's office. Through the partially open door, she could see him standing behind his desk, his posture rigid. Antonio was there, and two other men she recognized as high-ranking members of La Famiglia, and Don Giorgio, Salvatore's uncle, the man who'd called her an outsider. "Una vergogna," Giorgio was saying. Shame. "You bring shame on this family with your American whore?" The sound of Salvatore's fist hitting the desk was like a gunshot. "Careful," he said, his voice deadly quiet. "That's my wife you're insulting. Say it again, and uncle or not, you'll regret it." "Your wife?" Giorgio laughed bitterly. "You threw away an alliance with my family, with Francesca, for what? Some tourist you knew for one night? Some black girl who doesn't understand our ways, who will never belong here?" Maya's hand tightened on the doorframe. The slur in his voice when he said black made something cold settle in her stomach. "She belongs here because I say she belongs here," Salvatore said. "Because she wears my ring, because she's part of this family. Your prejudice is your problem, not hers." "My prejudice?" Giorgio moved closer to the desk. "Open your eyes, nephew. The other families are laughing at you, saying you've gone soft, that you chose a woman over power, that you're weak." "Let them laugh. Let them think I'm weak. They'll learn otherwise." "Will they? Because I've heard whispers. The Morettis are making moves in the Eastern Territories. The Corsicans are testing your borders, and all because they see you distracted by your new bride." Giorgio's voice dripped with contempt. "You're losing control, Salvatore, and it's her fault." "No." Another voice. Antonio, stepping forward. "It's your fault, Zio. You're the one spreading rumors, undermining his authority, trying to make him look weak because your pride was wounded." "My pride?" Giorgio whirled on Antonio. "This isn't about pride. This is about survival, about understanding that in our world, sentiment is dangerous. Love is dangerous. That woman upstairs, she's a liability, a target, and sooner or later, someone is going to use her to hurt him. Then I'll kill anyone who tries." Salvatore's voice was flat, final. "I've made my choice, Giorgio. Maya stays. She's my wife. She's family. And if you can't accept that, then you're no longer welcome in my home." Silence fell like a hammer. Giorgio stared at his nephew, something dangerous glittering in his eyes. "You'll regret this," he said quietly. "Mark my words. You'll regret choosing her over your responsibilities, over your family's future." "My family's future is my concern, not yours." "Then may God have mercy on you, because when she destroys everything you've built, and she will, don't come to me for help." Giorgio turned, saw Maya standing in the doorway. His smile was cruel. "Ah, the lady herself. I hope you're proud, Signorina. You've turned one of Sicily's most powerful men into a lovesick fool. Congratulations!" He pushed past her, his men following, their footsteps echoing through the villa. Maya stood frozen, her heart pounding. She looked into the office. Salvatore stood behind his desk, his hands braced on the wood, his head bowed. Every line of his body radiated tension. "How much did you hear?" he asked, without looking up. "Enough." She stepped into the room. "Is it true?" Are you losing control because of me? No, Salvatore. No. He finally looked up, and his eyes were blazing. Giorgio is bitter because his plans for a marriage alliance fell through. He's been spreading poison, trying to undermine me. But I am not losing control. My territories are secure. My businesses are thriving. The only thing that's changed is that I'm happy. And he can't stand that. He called me a liability. He's wrong. Is he? Maya moved closer. Be honest with me. Has marrying me made things harder for you? Made you vulnerable? Salvatore came around the desk, took her hands in his. Yes, he said simply. Yes, it's made me vulnerable. Because now I have something to lose. Someone who matters more than power or territory or any of the things I spent years building. And yes, that scares me. But Maya? His grip tightened. But that's also the point. That's what makes us human instead of monsters. The willingness to be vulnerable for the people we love. He said the other families are testing you. They always test. That's the nature of this world. But I'm handling it. How? By being smarter than them, stronger than them, by making it clear that anyone who comes for what's mine will pay a price they can't afford. His hand cupped her face. You are not a weakness, Maya. You're my strength. You make me want to be better, to build something that isn't just about fear and power, something that actually matters. Tears burned in her eyes. I don't want to be the reason you lose everything. You're the reason I have everything that matters. She kissed him then, desperate and fierce, trying to pour everything she couldn't say into the contact. When they pulled apart, Antonio cleared his throat from the doorway. Sorry to interrupt, but we have a problem, a real one. Salvatore's expression shifted instantly. What kind of problem? The kind that involves the Corsicans and a shipment that should have arrived 3 hours ago? Antonio's face was grim. They've taken it, and they left a message. What message? Antonio pulled out his phone, showed them a photo. It was a shipping container, spray-painted in red. Give us the American or lose everything. Maya's blood turned to ice. The office filled with men quickly. Salvatore's inner circle, his consigliori, his lieutenants, the men who ran different parts of his operation. They spoke in rapid Italian, arguing strategies, discussing options. Maya sat in the corner, trying to stay out of the way, trying not to think about the fact that she was the cause of all this. Give us the American. They wanted her. Were willing to steal from Salvatore, to provoke war, just to get to her. Why? She interrupted, her voice cutting through the Italian. Why do they want me specifically? Why not just, I don't know, why me? The room went quiet. Salvatore looked at her, something heavy in his expression. Because you're leverage, he said quietly. Because taking you would hurt me in a way that taking anything else couldn't. Because they know. He stopped. They know you love me, Maya finished. Yes. One of the older men, Carlo, his consigliere, spoke up in accented English. We cannot negotiate with them, Don Salvatore. You know this. We give them nothing. We show no weakness. Agreed? Another man said. We hit them back, hard, make an example. And risk open war with the Corsican syndicate? Antonio shook his head. They're not a small operation. They have connections across Europe, resources we don't have. Then what do you suggest? Carlo's voice was sharp. We let them steal from us? Threaten La Signora? Show everyone that the Greco family can be pushed around? I'm suggesting we be smart about this. Antonio looked at Salvatore. What do you want to do? Salvatore was silent for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then, everyone out. except Antonio and Carlo. The room cleared slowly, men casting curious glances at Maya as they left. When it was just the four of them, Salvatore moved to the window, staring out at the Mediterranean. "They want Maya," he said quietly. "They think taking her will destroy me, break me, make me weak." "It would," Carlo said bluntly. "Forgive me, Don Salvatore, but it's true. You love her. Losing her would make me very dangerous." Salvatore interrupted. "Would make me the kind of enemy they should fear. But—" He turned back. "But that's not the point. The point is, we can't let them think they can manipulate me through her. Can't let anyone think that." "So what's the play?" Antonio asked. Salvatore looked at Maya, and something in his eyes made her heart drop. "No," she said, standing. "Whatever you're thinking, no. Maya, you're not using me as bait. You're not—" "I'm not." He crossed to her, took her hands. "But I need you to trust me. Can you do that?" "That depends on what you're asking me to trust you with." He was quiet for a moment. Then, "I'm going to give them what they want." The room exploded in protest. "Don Salvatore, you can't be serious. It's suicide. The families will see it as weakness." "Enough." Salvatore's voice cut through the chaos. "I didn't say I'm giving them Maya. I said I'm giving them what they want. There's a difference." Antonio's eyes widened with understanding. "You're going to fake it." "Exactly." Salvatore looked at Carlo. "You still have contacts in the Carabinieri, the federal police?" "Yes, but—" "Good. Here's what we're going to do." The plan was insane. Maya said as much, repeatedly, as Salvatore explained it. They would stage her kidnapping. Make it look real. Salvatore visibly distraught, his men searching frantically, rumors spreading that the Corsicans had succeeded in taking her. Meanwhile, Maya would be hidden in a secure location with Antonio and a small team. Safe, protected, but appearing to be in Corsican hands. The Corsicans, thinking they'd won, would get cocky, would try to negotiate, would reveal more of their operation. And that's when Salvatore would strike, not just at the men who'd taken the shipment, but at their entire network. With federal police ready to move in, armed with evidence Salvatore had been gathering for months. "You're going to dismantle them," Maya said slowly. "Completely." "Yes, they threatened you, threatened my family. That's not something I forgive." His voice was cold. "And when this is over, no one will question whether I'm weak. They'll remember why they feared me in the first place." "And me? I'm supposed to just hide while you wage war?" "You're supposed to stay alive. That's all that matters. To you, maybe. But I'm not a damsel who needs rescuing, Salvatore. I'm not— You're my wife." The word came out fierce. "You're the person I wake up thinking about and go to sleep protecting. You're the reason I want to build something better than what my father left me. And I will burn this entire island to the ground before I let anyone hurt you." The intensity of it stole her breath. "When?" she asked quietly. "Tonight. The longer we wait, the more dangerous this becomes." "Then we don't wait." They staged the kidnapping at sunset. Maya walked through the garden, alone, as she sometimes did, enjoying the evening air. Salvatore watched from the terrace, visible to anyone who might be watching the villa. Right on schedule, a car pulled up to the side gate. Men in masks grabbed Maya, bundled her into the vehicle despite her very real screaming. Salvatore ran from the terrace, shouting, his gun drawn, but too late. The car sped away, leaving him standing in the driveway, his anguish visible from any surveillance point. It was a performance. But it was also real. because Maya was genuinely terrified, even knowing this was planned. The hands grabbing her were Antonio's men, but they were rough enough to be convincing. The car ride was disorienting, intentionally so, in case anyone was tracking. They drove for over an hour, through winding mountain roads, until they reached a small house perched on a cliff overlooking the sea. Remote, defensible, perfect. Inside, Antonio was waiting. "Welcome to your temporary prison," he said with a grin that didn't quite hide his worry. "It's not as nice as the villa, but it's safe. No one knows about this place except Salvatore and me." "How long?" Maya asked. 2 days, maybe 3. However long it takes for the Corsicans to think they've won and make their move. "And if something goes wrong?" Antonio's smile faded. "Then I get you out. That's my only job. Salvatore was very clear. Your safety above everything else. Above the plan. Above him. Above the family." "He can't mean that." "He does. Because that's what love looks like in our world. Sacrifice." Antonio moved to the window, looking out at the darkening sea. "My cousin. He's been alone for so long. Hard. Controlled. Never letting anyone close. And then you walked into his club, and I watched him crack open for the first time in years. Watched him remember how to hope." "Antonio, don't hurt him, Maya. Please. However this ends, whether you stay or go, don't make him regret loving you." The weight of it settled on her shoulders. "I don't want to hurt him," she said quietly. "I don't want to hurt anyone. But I'm scared, Antonio. Scared that loving him means this. Violence, danger, always looking over my shoulder. I came to Sicily running from a life that felt empty. But this," she gestured at the safe house, at their situation. "This is too full, too intense, too much." "Is it? Or are you just not used to being the center of someone's world?" The question hit too close. Maya turned away, stared out the window at the Mediterranean turning purple in the fading light. "My whole life, I've been running," she admitted. "From expectations. From family who didn't understand me. From anything that felt like it might tie me down. And then I met Salvatore. And for the first time, I wanted to stop running. Wanted to stay, but staying means accepting this world. The danger, the complexity, the fact that being loved by a man like Salvatore comes with consequences." "Yes? So the question is," Antonio moved to stand beside her, "is he worth it?" Maya thought about Salvatore's hands, gentle despite the violence they'd committed. His eyes, soft when they looked at her. The way he'd declared war on his own family to protect her. The way he said Mowgli, wife, like it was the most important word in any language. "Yes," she whispered. "He's worth it, but I don't know if I'm worth what it's costing him." "Let him decide that. He's a grown man. He knew the risks." "Did he? Did he know he'd fall in love? That it would make him vulnerable?" "Probably not, but I think—" Antonio smiled slightly. "I think he'd say it was worth every risk, every consequence, because you gave him something he'd stopped believing in." "What's that?" "A future that isn't just about survival. A reason to build instead of just defend." Before Maya could respond, Antonio's phone buzzed. He looked at it, his expression darkening. "What?" Maya asked. "Message from Salvatore. The Corsicans took the bait. They've made contact. They think they have you." He looked up. "And they're demanding a meeting, tomorrow night, to negotiate terms. Will he go? He has no choice. If he refuses, they'll know something's wrong." Antonio's jaw tightened. "But Maya, this is the most dangerous part. If anything goes wrong, if they figure out you're not actually their prisoner, Then what? Then we go to war, and people die. Maya sank into a chair, her head in her hands. This was her fault. All of it. If she'd just stayed away from that club. If she'd been more careful. If she'd said no to the marriage. But I didn't, and I don't regret it. The realization hit her like lightning. She didn't regret marrying Salvatore, didn't regret falling in love with him, didn't regret any of it, even this, even the danger, even the fear. Because 3 weeks ago, she'd been a woman with no roots, no home, no purpose beyond the next photograph, the next trip, the next escape. And now she was a woman who'd found something worth fighting for, someone worth staying for. Antonio, she said, looking up. When this is over, when the Corsicans are dealt with, I need to do something. What? I need to call my family, tell them about Salvatore, about Sicily, about the fact that I'm not coming home because... She stopped, breathed. Because I am home. This is home now, with him. Antonio's smile was genuine this time, relieved. He's going to be very happy to hear that. If we survive tomorrow night. When we survive tomorrow night. He squeezed her shoulder. Have faith, Signora. Your husband is very good at what he does, and what he does is win. The night passed slowly. Maya couldn't sleep, despite Antonio's assurances that they were safe. She kept thinking about Salvatore, alone in the villa, playing the part of devastated husband, preparing for a meeting that could end in violence. At dawn, Antonio received another message. It's happening tonight, 8 o'clock, an abandoned warehouse near the docks. He looked at Maya. Salvatore's going in with minimal security, making himself vulnerable. It's bait. What if they kill him? They won't. They need him alive to negotiate, and besides, Antonio's smile was sharp. My cousin is very hard to kill. Trust me, I've seen him survive things that would break other men. That's not reassuring. It's not meant to be. It's the truth. The day crawled by. Maya tried to read, tried to eat, tried to do anything except imagine all the ways tonight could go wrong. At 7 o'clock, Antonio's phone rang. He answered, listened, his face going pale. What? Maya demanded. What is it? They changed the location, moved the meeting to an old villa outside Palermo. He was already moving, grabbing weapons, checking equipment. And they're demanding Salvatore come alone, completely alone, no security, no backup. That's a trap. Of course it's a trap. But if he refuses, they'll know something's wrong. Antonio met her eyes. This just got a lot more dangerous. The abandoned villa sat like a corpse on the hillside. Maya watched it through binoculars from Antonio's car, parked a half-mile away behind a grove of olive trees. The building was old, centuries old probably, its Baroque facade crumbling, windows dark and empty like hollowed eyes. Salvatore's car was already there, alone, just as they'd demanded. He went in 15 minutes ago, Antonio said, checking his phone for the 4th time in as many minutes. No contact since. That's not good. That's the plan. Radio silence until... He stopped as his phone buzzed, read the message. His expression shifted. The federal police are in position, 3 teams surrounding the property, and, Cazzo, the Morettis are here too. The who? Another family. They've been working with the Corsicans, apparently. This is bigger than we thought. Antonio's hand tightened on his weapon. Maya, if this goes wrong, it won't. But if it does, you run. Don't look back. Don't try to help. Just run. There's a boat at the marina in Mondello, slip 23. Keys are under the seat. You take it, and you don't stop until you're in international waters. I'm not leaving him. You will if I tell you to, because that's what he'd want. That's what I promised him." Maya turned back to the binoculars, her heart pounding. Through the lenses, she could see movement now. Figures appearing in the villa's upper windows. More cars arriving, expensive, dark, the kind that powerful men traveled in. This wasn't a negotiation. This was an ambush. "Antonio," she said quietly, "how many men does Salvatore have inside?" "None. That was the deal. He goes in alone to prove good faith." "And how many do they have?" Antonio's silence was answer enough. "We need to do something," Maya said. "We need to—" Gunfire erupted from the villa. Sharp, rapid cracks that echoed across the hillside. Then more. The sound of automatic weapons, glass shattering, men shouting. "No!" Maya was out of the car before Antonio could stop her, running toward the villa, her heart in her throat. "Maya, wait!" But she couldn't wait. Couldn't stand by while Salvatore was in there, outnumbered, possibly dying. She'd spent her whole life running away from things. This time, she was running toward. Antonio caught up with her, cursing in Italian, but he didn't try to stop her. Just handed her a gun, small, light, the kind meant for close quarters. "Stay behind me," he commanded. "And if I tell you to run, I won't." "Dio mio, you're as stubborn as he is." They moved quickly through the overgrown garden, using crumbling statues and wild hedges as cover. The gunfire had stopped, replaced by eerie silence that was somehow worse. The villa's back entrance was unguarded, everyone focused on the front. Antonio tried the door. Locked. He shot the handle off, and they slipped inside. The interior was decay and grandeur, fighting for dominance. Marble floors cracked and dirty. Frescoed ceilings water-damaged and peeling. Furniture covered in sheets like ghosts. And blood. Fresh blood trailing across the marble. Maya's stomach clenched. "Please don't let it be his." "Please!" Voices echoed from the main hall. Italian and French, angry, negotiating. Antonio gestured for silence, and they crept closer, keeping to the shadows. Through a partially collapsed doorway, Maya could see the hall. It was massive, 2 stories high, with a gallery running around the second level. At least 20 men filled the space. Corsicans. Morettis. Others she didn't recognize. All armed, and in the center, on his knees with his hands bound, blood streaming from a cut above his eye. Salvatore. Maya's breath caught. She started forward, but Antonio's hand on her arm stopped her. "Wait," he whispered. "Look." Maya looked closer. Salvatore was injured, yes. But his eyes were clear, alert, watching everything, calculating. This wasn't a man who'd been defeated. This was a man waiting for his moment. "Think you're in a position to negotiate, Greco?" A man Maya recognized as Vincent Giordano, the Corsican leader, circled Salvatore like a shark. "Your wife is our prisoner. Your territory is crumbling. Your reputation is destroyed. You have nothing." Salvatore smiled, blood on his teeth. "Don't I? What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you fell for the oldest trick in the book." Salvatore's voice was steady despite his position. "You thought taking my wife would break me, would make me weak, would give you leverage. It did give us leverage. Did it?" Salvatore's smile widened. "Tell me, Vincent, when was the last time you actually saw Maya? Physically saw her? Touched her? Confirmed she was who your men claim she was?" Silence. Vincent's expression shifted. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying you're about to have a very bad night." That's when the lights went out. The villa plunged into darkness, so complete Maya couldn't see her hand in front of her face. Shouts erupted. Men stumbling, calling out, trying to find flashlights or phone lights. "Now!" Antonio whispered, pulling her toward the hall. What happened next was chaos. The federal police stormed in from 3 sides, front, back, gallery. Flashlights and laser sights cutting through the darkness. Commands shouted in Italian, "Polizia! Mani in alto!" Hands up. Gunfire erupted again. Brief. Targeted. Maya heard bodies hitting the floor. Heard men surrendering in Italian and French. Heard Antonio beside her, his weapon drawn, covering their position. And through it all, she kept her eyes on Salvatore. He'd rolled when the lights went out, gotten behind a pillar despite his bound hands. One of his men, she recognized him from the villa, loyal Pietro, cut his bonds and handed him a weapon. Salvatore moved through the darkness like he owned it. Like he'd spent his whole life preparing for exactly this moment. When the emergency lights flickered on, dim, battery-powered, the scene was almost over. Federal police had most of the Corsicans and Morettis on their knees, hands on their heads. Bodies littered the floor. Maya counted 6, maybe 7, all on the criminal side. Salvatore's federal contact had been precise. And Salvatore stood in the center of it all, his weapon still raised, blood and fury written across his face. His eyes scanned the room, searching. Found her. The relief that flooded his expression was so intense, it hurt to see. "Maya," he breathed. She ran to him. Didn't care about the police, the criminals, the danger. Just ran across the debris-strewn floor and threw herself into his arms. He caught her, held her so tight she could barely breathe. His face buried in her hair. "You weren't supposed to be here," he said, his voice rough. "You were supposed to stay safe." I couldn't just wait while you—" She pulled back, touching his bleeding face. "You're hurt." "I'm alive. That's what matters." His hands cupped her face. "You shouldn't have come. If something had happened to you." "Something could have happened to you. You went in alone, against 20 men. What were you thinking?" "I was thinking I needed to end this, permanently, so you'd never have to be afraid again." "I'm always going to be afraid when you do stupid, heroic things." "Then you're going to be afraid a lot, because keeping you safe is worth any risk." She kissed him, desperate, relieved, furious, in love, all of it pouring into the contact. When they pulled apart, a federal officer was waiting respectfully beside them. "Don Salvatore, we need your statement, and—" He glanced at Maya. "We need to confirm this is your wife, the woman the Corsicans claimed to have kidnapped." "This is Mafia Greco, my wife, and as you can see, she was never in Corsican hands." Salvatore's arm stayed around her waist. "The kidnapping was staged to draw them out, to make them reveal their full operation." "And it worked," the officer said with something like respect. "We have evidence linking the Corsicans to human trafficking, weapons smuggling, and 3 murders. The Morettis are implicated in money laundering and extortion. This will take down half the organized crime in Sicily." "Good." Salvatore's voice was cold. "I want every single person who threatened my wife prosecuted, fully. No deals. We'll see what we can do." "You'll do more than see, or I'll make sure everyone knows the federal police couldn't have done this without me." Salvatore's smile was sharp. "I believe that's called leverage." The officer sighed, but nodded. "We'll be in touch." As the police processed the scene, Antonio appeared with a medical kit. "Let me look at that cut," he said, gesturing to Salvatore's face. "I'm fine." You're bleeding all over your wife. Let me look at it. Maya took the kit from Antonio. I'll do it. Give us a minute. Antonio nodded, moved away to give them privacy. Maya dabbed at the cut with antiseptic, Salvatore wincing but not pulling away. You scared me, she said quietly. When the shooting started, I thought, I know. I'm sorry. His hand caught hers. But it had to be done. Had to be convincing. They needed to think they'd won. They almost did win. You were outnumbered 20-1. 18-1, actually. And I had backup. They were just waiting for the right moment. He smiled slightly. I've been planning this for weeks, Maya. Every detail, every contingency. I wasn't going to let anything happen to either of us. You can't promise that. Not in your world. Our world, he corrected. And you're right. I can't promise absolute safety. Can't promise there won't be danger or complications or moments like tonight. But I can promise. He took both her hands in his. I can promise that I will spend every day of my life trying to protect you. Trying to build something better. Trying to be worthy of the gift you've given me. What gift? Yourself, your trust, your love. His voice was rough with emotion. 3 weeks ago. You could have left, could have taken your freedom and run back to America. But you stayed. You chose this life. Chose me. And Maya, that means everything. Tears streamed down her face. I love you. I know it's fast. I know it's crazy. But I love you. And I want to stay. Not because I'm trapped or obligated, but because this is where I want to be. Ti amo, he whispered, forehead against hers. Mogli mia, my wife, my love, my home. Have you ever found home in the most unexpected place? Have you ever taken a leap of faith that changed your entire life? Share your story in the comments below. We love hearing about the moments that transformed you. 3 months later. Maya stood in the Palermo market, her camera around her neck. Speaking rapid Sicilian with a vendor who was teaching her the difference between blood oranges and regular oranges. Questi sono più dolci, the old woman said, holding up a blood orange. These are sweeter. Perfetto, Maya responded, her accent still American but improving daily. I'll take 6. The woman beamed, packaged the oranges with care, and waved away Maya's money. For la Signora Greco, no charge. Your husband, he helped my grandson get a job. This is nothing. Maya tried to insist, but the woman was adamant. Finally, Maya just hugged her, thanking her in Sicilian that made the old woman laugh and pat her cheek. This was her life now. Mornings in the villa, helping Nonna Agata in the garden. Afternoons photographing Sicily, not for tourists, but for herself, capturing the real island in all its complicated beauty. Evenings with Salvatore, talking about everything and nothing, building a life together piece by piece. She'd called her family 2 weeks after the warehouse incident. It had been hard. Her mother had cried. Her father had demanded to speak to Salvatore, to make sure this man was treating his daughter right. Her brothers had threatened to fly to Sicily and check things out. But eventually, they'd understood, or at least they'd accepted, because Maya sounded happy, genuinely happy, for the first time in years. We want to meet him, her mother had said finally. This husband of yours, this man who made you want to stop running. You will, soon. I'll bring him to Atlanta for Christmas. The thought of Salvatore meeting her family was terrifying and thrilling in equal measure. But she knew he'd handle it. Knew he'd charm her mother with his quiet courtesy, win over her father with his directness, probably end up in the garage talking about cars with her brothers, because Salvatore understood family, understood loyalty, understood the importance of roots and belonging. Now, walking through the market with her oranges, Maya felt someone watching her. She turned, found Salvatore leaning against a wall near the fruit stand, his arms crossed, a small smile on his face. "How long have you been there?" she asked in Italian. "Long enough to watch you negotiate in Sicilian. You're getting good." Nonna is a strict teacher. She likes having someone to teach, someone who actually listens to her stories instead of just humoring her. He pushed off the wall, moved to her side. "Ready to go home?" Home. The word still made her heart warm every time. "Yes, but I want to stop by the gallery first, see if they want more prints." A month ago, a small gallery in Palermo had started displaying Maya's photographs. They'd sold out within a week. Now she had a waiting list and had started planning her first official exhibition. The American photographer who captures Sicily's soul. That's how the local paper had described her work. Salvatore walked beside her through the market, his hand finding hers naturally. People greeted them, Don Salvatore and his American wife, the couple who'd somehow made an impossible marriage work. "I got a message from Don Giorgio," Salvatore said as they walked. "He wants to meet, to apologize." "For what he said? About me?" "For everything. Apparently his daughter Francesca got engaged to someone else, a banker from Rome. She's happy." And Giorgio realized he was trying to force something that was never meant to be. Salvatore squeezed her hand. "He wants to make peace, rejoin the family properly." "What did you say?" "I said I'd discuss it with my wife first, that her opinion matters as much as mine." Maya stopped walking, looked up at him. "You're serious?" "Of course. You're not just my wife, Maya. You're my partner, my equal. Your voice matters." She thought about it, about the cruelty in Giorgio's eyes that day at the villa, about the slurs and contempt. But she also thought about family, about forgiveness, about the fact that Nonna Agata had been sad these past months, missing her son-in-law at family dinners. "We meet with him," she decided, "but he apologizes to me directly, not through you, to my face. And if he ever disrespects me again, he's done." "Permanently." Salvatore's smile was proud. "Done? I'll set it up." They continued walking, the market noise flowing around them, vendors calling, children laughing, life in all its chaotic beauty. "Do you miss it?" Salvatore asked suddenly. "America? Brooklyn? Your old life?" Maya thought about it honestly. "Sometimes. I miss my family. Miss certain foods, good bagels, real BBQ. Miss understanding every conversation around me." She looked up at him. "But do I miss my old life?" "No. That life was me running. This life," she gestured at the market, at Sicily, at him. "This is me staying. And staying is so much better." "Even with the danger? The complications? The fact that you married into a mafia family?" "La famiglia," she corrected with a smile. "And yes, even with all of that. Because I'd rather have a complicated life that matters than a simple one that feels empty." "You're sure?" "Salvatore." She stopped, made him face her fully. "I woke up 3 months ago in a strange country, married to a man I didn't remember, terrified and confused. And somehow, impossibly, that disaster turned into the best thing that ever happened to me. So yes, I'm sure I'm home, with you, and I'm not going anywhere." He pulled her close, kissed her there in the middle of the market, and she didn't care who was watching, didn't care about anything except this moment, this man, this life they were building together. When they pulled apart, Salvatore was smiling, that rare, unguarded smile that she'd learned meant he was genuinely happy. "Andiamo a casa, mogli mia," he said softly. "Let's go home, my wife." "Si, marito mio," she responded. "Yes, my husband." They walked through Palermo hand in hand, the setting sun painting the city gold. And Maya thought about fate and choice and the strange, beautiful way life sometimes gave you exactly what you needed in the form you'd never expected. She'd come to Sicily for a wedding. She'd stayed for a marriage. And somewhere between running away and learning to stay, between fear and love, between Brooklyn and these ancient streets, she'd found herself. 1 year later, the villa was transformed, lights strung through the lemon trees, tables set with white linens and gold place settings, food enough to feed half of Sicily. Nonna Agata had insisted, and what Nonna wanted, Nonna got. Maya stood on the terrace, watching the sun set, one hand resting on her still flat stomach. Too early for anyone else to notice. But she knew. She'd found out this morning, had told Salvatore immediately, watching his face cycle through shock, joy, and fierce protectiveness in the space of seconds. "We're having a baby," he'd said, his hand covering hers on her stomach. "Dio mio, Maya, we're having a baby. Are you happy?" "Happy? He'd stopped, overcome. "I'm terrified and grateful, and so in love with you, I can barely think straight." Tonight's party was officially to celebrate 1 year of marriage. Unofficially, it was celebrating so much more. Celebrating survival. Celebrating love. Celebrating family. The one you're born into and the one you choose. Maya's parents were here, having arrived yesterday. Her mother had cried upon meeting Nonna Agata. The two women somehow communicating across language barriers through food and grandmotherly affection. Her father and Salvatore had spent 3 hours in the wine cellar, emerging friends. Her brothers had tried to intimidate Salvatore, which was adorable and futile. He'd won them over with his vintage car collection. "There you are." Jade appeared beside her, stunning in a red dress. She'd been back to visit twice since the wedding, and each time had stayed longer. There was a Sicilian architect she'd been seeing. Maya had a feeling there might be another wedding soon. "Just taking it all in," Maya said. "It's beautiful. You're beautiful. This whole life you've built." Jade shook her head. "I'm so proud of you." "For what? Accidentally marrying a mafia boss? For having the courage to stay when you could have run? For choosing love over fear? For building something real?" Antonio bounded up the terrace steps, his energy as chaotic as ever. "The guests are arriving. Are you ready for your grand entrance?" "As ready as I'll ever be." "Good, because half of Sicily is here to celebrate with you, including—" He grinned. "Including Don Giorgio, who brought a gift so expensive I think he's trying to apologize for the rest of his life." Maya laughed. Giorgio had kept his word, apologized sincerely, accepted her as family, and spent the past year trying to make amends. It was working. Slowly. Salvatore appeared, looking devastating in a dark suit, his eyes finding hers immediately across the terrace. "Ready, mogli mia?" he asked, offering his arm. "Ready, marito mio." They descended the steps together. Into the garden filled with family and friends and people whose lives were somehow interconnected with theirs. The party was beautiful, loud, full of love and laughter and the kind of chaos that came from mixing American and Sicilian families in one space. Later, after dinner and toasts and dancing, Maya found herself alone with Salvatore in the chapel. The same chapel where Nonna Agata had taken her that first morning, where she'd prayed while Maya stood awkwardly, not understanding. Now Maya understood. This space was about more than religion. It was about continuity, about honoring the past while building the future. "I have something for you," Salvatore said. He handed her a photograph, black and white, beautifully framed. It was them, in the Palermo market. Maya laughing at something he'd said. Salvatore looking at her like she was the sun and moon and stars. "When did you—" "Antonio took it. A few months ago. I had it framed. I thought—" He paused. "I thought maybe this could be the first in our own wall of family photographs. The start of our story. The one we'll show our children and grandchildren." Maya's hand went to her stomach. "About that. I know it's early. I know we should wait to tell people. But Maya—" His hand covered hers. "I've never been happier. Never been more grateful. You gave me everything I didn't know I was missing. And now—" His voice broke. "Now we get to build a family. Together." She kissed him, tasting salt from tears she hadn't realized were falling. "I love you," she whispered. "I love you so much. And I love this life. This crazy, complicated, beautiful life we've built. Even though you woke up married to a stranger? Especially because of that." She smiled through her tears. "Because that stranger became my home. And I finally understand. Home isn't a place. It's not a country or a city or even a building. Home is wherever you choose to stay. Wherever you build something that matters. And where is your home, Maya Greco?" She looked at him, this man who'd offered her protection when she was desperate, who'd shown her patience when she was confused, who'd fought for her when she was threatened, who loved her with an intensity that still took her breath away. "Here," she said simply, "with you, always." Some women wake up in Vegas with regrets. Maya Johnson woke up in Sicily with a husband, and somewhere between the fear and the love, between running away and choosing to stay, between Brooklyn and these ancient streets, she woke up to herself, to home, to the life she'd always been searching for, wrapped in the arms of a man she'd never expected to find. And if that's not magic, what is? Thank you for watching Mafia Folklore. If this story of unexpected love and finding home in foreign places moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who believes in second chances and the courage to stay. Until next time, remember that sometimes the best things in life start with waking up confused and end with waking up exactly where you belong. Ciao, familia.